Hello there, and welcome to today's recap of the anime series titled Farming Life in Another World. In his past life, our protagonist Hiraku suffered hardships that would have brought a great number of men to their knees. Poverty, terminal illness, and betrayal? You name it! Luckily, the god in his world turned out to be an ethical one. Long story short, God offers to reincarnate Hiraku in another world while also granting him the freedom to do whatever he pleases. What's fascinating, though, is how Hiraku surprisingly requests to reincarnate as a simple farmer instead of hoping to become an unrivaled king or an invincible warrior. God, of course, has no reason to refuse such a harmless request. Heck, he even gives Hiraku the omnipotent farming tool to aid him on his journey to become the greatest farmer that ever lived. Finally, upon reaching the new world, the foremost thing Hiraku does is to establish himself a home base under an enormous tree. Up next, he goes on to build a hut, a well as several other common necessities. Afterwards, the fellow doubles down on his favorite farm-related work, ASAP. The omnipotent farming tool provides a big help here since not only can it transform into any of the necessary farming tools, but can help Hiraku grow any of his desired crops without the need to plant any seeds first. A couple of weeks pass by in a rush, until one day an infernal wolf couple stops by Hiraku's farm. Poor animals seem to have become gravely injured after a brawl with some other wild beast. The warm-hearted Hiraku takes pity on them and ends up adopting them both as his personal guard dogs after giving them proper medication. Afterwards, a giant spider named Zabuton approaches Hiraku's residence as well. The tentacled creature surprisingly offers to spend warm clothing and bed sheets for Hiraku in return for a living space and food. Such a deal, of course, serves as a lifesaver, especially since winter draws near. Flash forward a few months and winter's gone now. Here, we witness Hiraku feeling lonely despite being accompanied by dozens of wolf pups and baby spiders. Seems like the spider and wolf couple have been hard at work the entire winter. Anyhow, Hiraku's wish for a human's company is soon fulfilled once his pet wolves corner an intruder named Rue out in the woods. Technically speaking, she's a vampire and not a human, but you get the point. Anyways, Hiraku approaches pretty soon and offers some of his blood to help Rue recover. The girl later becomes flabbergasted upon witnessing how a dozen infernal wolves and a great demon spider have been tamed by Hiraku and obediently follow his commands down to a letter T. She's even further amazed upon bumping across Hiraku's outworldly crops and fruit gardens. Long story short, the girl falls head over heels for the farmer boy and the two soon end up getting married. Soon afterwards, the wolves welcome another beautiful maiden inside the forest with as much warmth and enthusiasm as they did the first time around. Luckily, Hiraku arrives on time yet again and rescues the new girl named Tia, who's an angel with flashy wings, by the way. Same as Rue, Tia too is won over by Hiraku's gorgeous crops and thus settles down permanently there as well. Turns out Tia's quite connected, as very soon she invites a group of 7 elvish females to live together on the farm as well. Being alive for centuries no doubt teaches one a thing or two. That said, the pretty-looking elvish girls are proficient in almost everything, from construction and blacksmithing to baking and cooking. Needless to say, their knowledge helps further expand not just the farm, but also Hiraku's own horizons. Lots of work is done in the days after. Zabuton, for instance, catches a gigantic queen bee, which later ends up building a scary-looking beehive inside a random hut. Lots and lots of honey in the days to come. Just don't mind the occasional sting or two, ladies. Meanwhile, Hiraku and the elves together build canals to bestow an endless stream of water upon their farms instead of being forced to dig out water from a well each time. The water abundance also leads to lots of fishing opportunities, as well as Hiraku working out ways to build himself a rice paddy or two. Time flies by until a legendary wyvern attacks the farm one fateful day. Neither the vampire princess Rue nor the angel of annihilation Tia are unable to trade more than a couple of blows with the mighty foe. Just then, Hiraku's omnipotent farming tool, which in truth is the replica of a divine weapon and therefore holds unimaginable power, involuntarily transforms into a shiny-looking spear. Without thinking much, Hiraku thrusts the spear at the wyvern and slays it in a single blow. Then, the afterwaves produced from the wyvern's death shock the entire planet. Whether it be the fearsome Demon Lord Galgardo or the Dragon King Drime too, they all became terrified upon learning of the horrific existence living inside the depths of the Forest of Death, one that slew a legendary wyvern with a single blow. In the coming days, Rue's sister Flora, 3 more angels, lizard men, ogre maids, and some 30 more elves arrive and settle down at the farm as well. Together, Hiraku and all these residents on the farm succeed in brewing lots of wine, rear a ton of chickens, plus several cows as well. A feast follows, where Hiraku names their ever-growing farm as the Great Tree Village. The ceremony soon ends after the crowd unanimously elects Hiraku as their village's first ever mayor. A few days later, a bunch of beastmen arrive from a neighboring village and offer to trade silver, iron, and glass utensils in return for food supplies. Hiraku readily agrees and even allows a couple dozen beast girls to permanently reside in his village as a token of his goodwill. His hopes are raised once a batch of dwarves moves into the village. Regrettably, these kinky fellows fail to consider a woman pretty, unless she has a big looming beard and a bushy mustache. The dwarves, however, do prove their usefulness by utilizing their innovative distillation technology to brew whiskey for the village. On the following day, the Dragon King Drime comes to pay his respects, together with his wife Grafaloon and his daughter Lastismoon. Hiraku almost shoots Glafamoon down with his spear after mistaking them as malicious intruders. Thankfully, Zabaton the Spider recognizes who the newcomers are, and thus pulls the Dragon King's wife out of harm's way in due time. Hiraku, of course, apologizes for his rash behavior ASAP, and heartily welcomes the dragon family back to his village with much courtesy and respect. Far away, Demon General Beezle becomes quite wary of the Great Tree Village's ever-growing strength. Beezle thus sends his daughter Florim to act as a spy in the said village. Back to Hiraku. His beloved wife Rue is soon revealed to have become pregnant with his baby and will therefore be requiring much care in the days to come. Flash forward 9 months and Hiraku's son Alfred opens his eyes to the world for the first time ever. Needless to say, the entire village becomes overjoyed and arranges a grand celebration for their mayor Hiraku and his wife Rue's moment of happiness. Meanwhile, both Beezle and the Demon Lord Galgardo are seen carefully analyzing the info gathered by Beezle's daughter Florim while spying on the village. Both quickly realize how the Great Tree Village is an entirely different league and simply can't be messed with. That said, they will be much better off striving to become allies with Hiraku and his Great Tree Village instead of initiating a hopeless war. Back at the village, some 200 people simultaneously request to move in as an attempt to escape their own war-torn and poverty-stricken countries. Regrettably, as much as Hiraku would like to provide shelter for every homeless person out there, there's truly no place left for the newcomers to settle in anymore. The courageous and optimistic Hiraku remains unfazed by such troubles though, and simply starts planning to build a second village to help house all the newcomers. That's where the final episode of Season 1 comes to a satisfying conclusion. Do comment whether or not you're fond of such a peaceful life being lived by Hiraku and his companions at the Great Tree Village.